The National Party is anti-worker. The policies of the National Party are a threat to the interests of the working class. They were desperate to abolish the trade union empowering legislation of the previous government. The abolition of this legislation was one of their first actions upon being elected. The National Party hates trade unions. In 1951, the first national government introduced extremely authoritarian laws to crush a trade union strike. These laws destroyed freedom of speech and freedom of the press. In the 1990s, National destroyed trade unions and workers' rights with the devastating Employment Contracts Act. John Key passed legislation to prevent film production workers from unionizing. The National Party has a long history of attacking trade unions and workers' rights. And of course they do, because the National Party is funded by rich people. Trade unions exist to address the massive power imbalance between employees and employers. Many National Party donors benefit from this massive power imbalance. This massive power imbalance facilitates the mistreatment and exploitation of workers. National hates trade unions, the solution to that power imbalance. National is anti-worker. National abolished the first home buyers grant. This was after they dishonestly claimed that they would keep it in place if elected. The first home buyers grant was a small amount of financial aid intended to give first home buyers a chance on the property market. First home buyers are likely to belong to the working class. The first home buyers grant existed to give working class people a chance on a property market that is full of wealthy buyers. And National abolished it without warning, in doing so threatening the home ownership aspirations of many working class people. The National Party has slowed minimum wage increases. Thankfully, they are still increasing the minimum wage, but they are doing so far more slowly than Labour did. They increase it slowly so that inflation inevitably begins to devour it and undermine any increase. This is anti-worker. Hard work should be rewarded with a decent wage. Hard work should not be punished with poverty and destitution. Low-level work is necessary. It should be rewarded with a decent wage. Low-level workers should not be condemned to poverty and destitution. National has increased the unemployment rate. They have fired masses of public servants. They have changed the mandate of the Reserve Bank so that unemployment rates are no longer a consideration. And unemployment rates are inevitably increasing. High unemployment is bad for the working class. It puts many members of the working class in a position of poverty and destitution. It gives employers more leverage as job seekers have fewer options. The hours may be terrible, the working conditions may be poor, the pay may be garbage, but if it is your only option, you just have to take it. A higher unemployment rate gives employers more leverage as workers have fewer options. Job seekers become increasingly powerless. It becomes easier and easier to exploit and mistreat members of the working class. Another sign of National's anti-worker nature is their eagerness to work with the ACT Party. National considers ACT to be a natural coalition partner. A national government will include the ACT Party. The ACT Party has a blatantly anti-worker agenda. They want to stagnate the minimum wage. They hate trade unions. They want to privatise public services. They want to cut social welfare and destroy the social safety net. They want to gut the public services that working people rely on to fund tax cuts for their rich donors. ACT is extremely anti-worker, and National is always eager to form a government with them. National talks about cutting red tape. This may sound like it means cutting dumb regulations, but don't be deceived. In effect, cutting red tape means cutting protections for workers so wealthy employers can make more profit with less effort. The National-led coalition government has already passed legislation that makes it easier to fire workers. The National-led coalition is planning on reducing sick leave for part-time workers. Screwing over working people so that rich business owners can be even more rich. National has no interest in the pro-worker policy that New Zealand desperately needs. Quite to the contrary, they have an appalling anti-worker policy platform. The National Party is funded by rich elites. The rapid rise of Luxon shows that the party is dominated by rich elites. In the National Party, being a rich elite is the greatest possible virtue. How else do you explain the rapid rise of Luxon? A man who lacks charisma, serious ideas, or decent policy. A man who never makes a good argument. A man who never makes a passionate argument. A man who mindlessly repeats the same talking points over and over again. A weak leader who has no vision for the country. A man who is so obviously out of his depth. How does a man like that rise to the top so fast? Because he is a rich elite, and in the National Party, the rich elite is like royalty. National is a party that is funded by rich elites and dominated by rich elites. That is just a fact. And these rich elites have a blatantly anti-worker policy agenda. That is the reality. They must be voted out of office in 2026.